Folks, Akivili. Are they the Trailblazer? Now, well, at first, I considered this a fringe conspiracy theory along the likes of the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, the Black Michael Phelps, and ghosts. There have been a growing collection of moments recently that are pretty undeniable and seem to heavily link the Trailblazer to the fallen Aeon of the Trailblaze, be it the Herda Noose abomination. Fools.
Patient number 01, Akivili. Is there a Miss Akivili? Miss Akivili, diagnosed with Stellaron symptoms per the records. Are you present? Please proceed to exam room 1.
They called you by name, Miss Akivili?
And most recently, the Void.
Akivili. Akivili.
Now, what's interesting about the Void is the presence of the other Trailblazer here in black, and it looks like they just, I don't know, had a fucking public execution. It looks like they were hanged in the 1800s. But the other Trailblazer, by all accounts, should not exist, because we never picked them, so, well, why are they here? The reason this is noteworthy is because back during the finale of Amphorius, if you remember, the real Trailblazer spoke with a certain someone about why they trailblaze.
Why did you set out? Why do you trailblaze?
Who is it?
I trailblaze because my own eyes have not seen the end.
But I'm different. I chose to trailblaze because I am already on this road.
Well, now, who is this heifer? His words may actually clue us in on who they're supposed to represent, and it has to do with why this mysterious entity trailblazes, and it's because they haven't seen the end yet. Sound familiar? Quote, there are 3 directions on the compass of destiny: the unknown, the known, and the unknowable. They can tolerate the unknown, but will never bow to the unknowable. Akivili left the isolated world of Pagana and continued to expand the unknown edges of the universe, trying to find an endpoint of the Tree of Existence. Akivili themselves. This kind of makes sense, when you realize that at this point in time, in Amphorius' finale, the only people who existed in the universe were just the Trailblazer and Cyrene, and, somehow Pom Pom, so it kind of makes sense in this moment. The Trailblazer had to sort of just, sit up, lock in, and internally remember what the game is all about. And who better to remind them of that than the god of trailblazing themselves? Now, with that said, if this is Akivili, or, the spirit of Akivili, I don't know, you guys are a bit angrier and scarier than I imagined, This wasn't really a motivational moment as much as it was, ease up, brother. Now, whether or not this is Akivili, again, I think it's meant to represent them spiritually or internally, so it doesn't really detract from the big question in this video, which is the Trailblazer Akivili. But this should beg the question as to why the Trailblazer or the other Trailblazer is constantly invoked around the real Trailblazer when it has to do with the topic of Akivili. With that aside, let's circle back to the main topic, which is the Trailblazer Akivili. Boy, that's all one sentence, by the way. Well, first, let's ask ourselves, what happened to Akivili? In truth, no one really knows. All that's said about them in the archives are, quote, the Aeon that presides over the path of Trailblaze. They departed from the isolated world of Pagana and continued to trailblaze unknown frontiers. Their destiny came to an end unexpectedly, and, quote, unfortunately, Akivili's destiny was abruptly ended due to an accident. Hell, Dr. Ratio speaks about the downfall of Akivili as if it's one of the greatest mysteries in the cosmos.
You're late. By 4 minutes and 16 seconds. You better have solved the mystery of Akivili's fall. Otherwise, I suggest not tangling with the Nameless.
And in a sense, it kinda is. How does an Aeon just disappear? Of the 3 ways an Aeon can die...
There are many stories about fallen Aeons. Lon the Permanence, Drilla the Beauty, Anna the Order, Tazeronth the Propagation, Akivili the Trailblazer. These names were once known all over the universe. And now they've all but disappeared, leaving behind only masterless paths.
The 2 we know about don't apply to Akivili, as they simply, overcame an accident, and that'd be a really odd way of describing another Aeon killing Akivili or consuming their path. We don't really know what the 3rd way is, so who knows, maybe Akivili went the way of the 3rd. There is, however, one person in the entire cosmos who may know what happened to Akivili. Noose. One half of the Herda Noose abomination that called us Akivili. Now, does this mean we're Akivili? No, and I personally lean towards the interpretation that we're not Akivili for a multitude of different reasons. The first being, if we were Akivili, then why doesn't anyone around us know? Kafka isn't aware of what came of Akivili, so she doesn't know their fate, and yet she knows the Trailblazer better than anyone. So if they were Akivili, it seems like she'd know. Another person who fits the other half of this equation is Pom Pom, who knew Akivili personally better than probably anyone, and, because Akivili traveled in the Express, yet when Pom Pom spoke to the Trailblazer with the fate of the universe on the line, you notice Pom Pom separated Akivili from the Trailblazer.
At long last, you've embarked on this road as well. Many, many years ago, they were standing at the start of the road in hesitation, just like you are now. So, Pom Pom came over to give you one message. Run.
But all this begs the question, then, why, if the Trailblazer isn't Akivili, does the universe keep calling them Akivili? Maybe it's because they best embody the spirit of the Trailblaze. They are, after all, essentially the main character of the universe. That is quite literally the purpose. The Stellaron Hunters handed them over to the Express to become its center and prevent an apocalyptic ruin for the universe.
It was a wish from the cosmos that set you in motion. And in the tale where you are the protagonist, the stars themselves will defy the destiny of finality.
Now, with that said, this shouldn't be apparent to everyone else aside from Elio and the Stellaron Hunters, who hatched this plan, so I don't find it very convincing as to why everyone else would call them Akivili for this reason. Now, with that said, I cannot offer another alternate explanation as to why everyone would then call them Akivili. And what I really mean by this question specifically is the most recent scene is unique insofar as I'm willing to buy earlier examples of the Trailblazer being called Akivili could have signified the Express as a whole, but what about now? With this monster deep in the void, why was it only the Trailblazer who heard its voice? And if it had a voice that only the Trailblazer could hear, why then call them Akivili? I'm afraid until we know more about this voice in the void, this shall remain blows close.